Primus gasped as the rusted hull of the derelict human warship filled the view screen, a terrifying mechanical leviathan that had once cleaved through Quar battlecruisers by the hundreds. The ancient vessel hung dead in space, battle scars from eons past still seared into its armored hide. Primus swallowed hard. His claws clicked nervously against the command console of the tiny Benzite explorer. Every spacefaring youngling knew dark tales of humanity's dreaded war fleets and their bloodthirsty conquests. Militarized monstrosities like this one had smashed the Quar Dominion into submission over 3 centuries ago, before vanishing back into the void as suddenly as they'd arrived. And now one of the legendary Terran warships lay before him, adrift and abandoned on the edge of Benzite space. Primus turned to his bridge crew, a knot of dread forming in his stomach. "Zolax, Kren, gear up. We're going to board that thing." Zolax's eyes widened. "Captain, this ship obliterated entire enemy fleets. It could be rigged with stasis traps or dark matter bombs, or it could contain technology that puts our feeble plasma drives to shame," Primus finished. "We have to know what secrets it holds. Our species' survival may depend on it." He fixed his gaze on the drifting hulk. Horrors of the past were no match for the insatiable curiosity of the Benzite soul. The ship's corridors seemed to stretch into infinity, but Primus and Zolax pressed on, driven by a shared curiosity. As Kren worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries hidden within the ship's databanks, the 2 explorers ventured deeper into the heart of the vessel. They soon found themselves standing before a massive set of blast doors, the entrance to the ship's armory. With a hiss of ancient hydraulics, the doors slid open, revealing a cavernous chamber filled with an array of weapons unlike anything they had ever seen. Plasma rifles, fusion cannons, and dark matter grenades lined the walls, each one a testament to humanity's prowess in the art of war. A holographic projection flickered to life, the image of a battle-hardened human soldier materializing before them. The soldier stood tall, his armor scarred and battered, a testament to the countless battles he had survived. He spoke, his voice gruff and filled with the weight of experience. "I am Sergeant Jeffrey Rice of the United Earth Federation. If you're seeing this, then you've found the UEF Indomitable, the last of our great warships." Primus and Zolax exchanged a glance, their hearts racing as they realized the significance of the moment. "Listen well, for I have a tale to tell, a tale of our final battle against the Quar, a battle that would decide the fate of our species. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and on the brink of annihilation. But we had something the Quar could never understand. We had the indomitable spirit of humanity, the will to fight and the refusal to surrender, even in the face of certain death." The sergeant's words painted a vivid picture, transporting Primus and Zolax to the heart of the battle. They could almost hear the roar of the ship's engines, the thunder of its weapons as it clashed against the Quar forces. Our captain, a brilliant tactician, had a plan so daring, so audacious, that it bordered on madness. But it was our only hope, our last chance to turn the tide of the war. The sergeant's tale hung in the air, unfinished, as the hologram flickered out of existence. Primus and Zolax stood in stunned silence for a moment, the weight of Rice's words settling upon them like a heavy cloak. The curiosity that had driven them to explore the derelict ship now burned with a newfound intensity, fueled by the tantalizing glimpse into humanity's past. With a shared glance and a nod, Primus and Zolax turned on their heels and hurried back to the central computer core, where Kren had been working tirelessly to unravel the ship's secrets. As they entered the dimly lit chamber, they found Kren hunched over the console, his eyes locked on the flickering screens before him. "Kren, what have you found?" Primus asked, his voice tight with anticipation. Kren looked up, his face etched with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. "Captain, this ship, it's not just a warship. It's a research vessel, designed to develop and test experimental weapons technology." Zolax's eyes widened. "Experimental weapons? Like what?" Kren turned back to the console, his fingers flying across the interface as he pulled up a series of logs and schematics. The crew was working on something called Project Prometheus, a weapon so powerful that it could have changed the course of the war. Primus leaned in closer, his gaze fixed on the schematics that danced across the screen. "Tell us more, Kren. We need to know everything about this weapon." Kren nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration as he delved deeper into the ship's archives. Hours passed as he sifted through the data, his eyes darting back and forth across the screens, absorbing every scrap of information he could find. Suddenly he froze, his fingers hovering over the console. "Captain, I've found something, a series of encrypted files, heavily protected by advanced security protocols." Primus and Zolax exchanged a glance, their hearts racing with anticipation. "Can you break through the encryption?" Primus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kren's eyes narrowed, a determined glint shining within them. "I can try." The hours ticked by as Kren worked, his fingers dancing across the console in a frenzy of activity. Primus and Zolax watched in silence, their breaths held in anticipation as Kren battled against the ancient security systems. Finally, with a triumphant shout, Kren sat back in his chair, a grin spreading across his face. "I've done it. The files are open." Primus and Zolax crowded around the console, their eyes wide with wonder, as the schematics, test results, and video logs spilled across the screens. The true nature of Project Prometheus was finally revealed, and as they watched in awe, the three Benzites began to understand the full magnitude of their discovery. Kren's fingers flew across the console, navigating through troves of encrypted data with swift precision. As the files revealed their secrets, Primus, Zolax, and Kren sat transfixed, their mouths agape at the scope of Project Prometheus. Unbelievable. It was a program to cybernetically enhance human soldiers into ultimate weapons of war, Kren breathed, his eyes wide as reams of technical schematics scrolled past. Neural implants to boost reflexes and tactical processing to superhuman levels. Subdermal armor weave to render their flesh nearly impervious to harm. Ocular augments granting telescopic and thermal vision. "They would have been unstoppable on the battlefield," Primus murmured, envisioning legions of augmented human warriors tearing through enemy lines like demigods of destruction. What stopped them from deploying these super soldiers? Kren delved deeper into the files, his brow furrowing. It seems the project ran into major setbacks. The neural implants required extremely invasive brain surgery with a high risk of complications or insanity. There were debates about the ethics of so radically altering the human form. But ultimately, it looks like the war simply ended before Prometheus could be perfected and soldiers could start receiving implants. A sudden lurch threw the Benzites from their seats as the derelict vessel shuddered violently around them. Klaxons blared, and crimson emergency lights flashed in the gloom. The deck convulsed again, nearly knocking them from their feet. Primus lunged for a flickering monitor. Gyro stabilizers are failing across the lower decks. "We're caught in some kind of massive gravitational—" His voice died as he stared at the external cameras. Looming before them, a monstrous black hole filled the screen, its perfect darkness ringed by a swirling accretion disk of white-hot stellar matter, and the derelict ship was sliding toward that abyss, inexorably drawn into its pull. "The reactor's redlining, trying to break us free, but it's too far gone," Kren cried, his face lit by the angry red glare of emergency readouts. "This ship will tear itself apart." They sprinted for the passage, as the ship bucked and screamed, riven by the colossal tidal forces stretching it to oblivion. Bulkheads crumpled around them with tortured metal screeches, deck plates splintered and canted wildly underfoot, flames gouted from ruptured plasma lines. Primus and Zolax dragged a stunned Kren to his feet as a structural beam crashed down where he'd stood a heartbeat before. Choking on acrid smoke, they staggered through the disintegrating bowels of the dying ship, emergency blast doors slamming shut behind them. Even as they ran for their lives, Primus couldn't help but marvel at the genius of the human engineers. That it had taken the monstrous power of a black hole to finally destroy this centuries-old warship was a testament to their brilliance. The ship was crumbling to dust around him, yet it still fought to the last to save the lives of the creatures inside it, maintaining emergency power, life support, gravity. Then Primus and his crew were stumbling into a cavernous shuttle bay, racing aboard their waiting explorer ship. As Zolax frantically worked the controls, the small craft roared to life. Docking clamps snapped free, and the ship dropped like a stone into open space. Through the viewports, Primus watched the ravaged hulk of the human vessel shrink away above them, vanishing into the blinding accretion disk of the black hole. Primus found himself saluting the human crew, who had fought to the bitter end aboard that proud ship. Then the explorer's engines flared, and it streaked for safety as reality twisted and distorted around the maw of the void behind them. As the crippled human warship shuddered and buckled in the black hole's inexorable pull, Primus made a snap decision. He couldn't let the priceless knowledge within this vessel be lost forever to the pitiless void. Spinning to his crewmates, he barked orders over the tortured squeal of rending metal. "Zolax, Kren, with me. We're not leaving empty-handed." The two Benzites shared a startled glance, but fell in behind their captain without hesitation as he sprinted for the cargo hold. The deck heaved sickeningly underfoot, nearly pitching them into the walls. Kren staggered and would have fallen if Zolax hadn't seized his arm, hauling him upright. Primus just gritted his teeth and pushed himself faster, refusing to succumb to the gnawing dread in his gut. The future of his species might hinge on what they could salvage here. Failure was not an option. Careening around a corner, they skidded to a halt as a massive girder crashed down just inches from Primus's snout, cleaving through the deck in a gout of sparks and smoke. Eyes watering, he waved his crew onward through the haze. Emergency lights flickered erratically overhead, threatening to plunge them into darkness at any moment. The ship's agonized groans grew louder, the tortured metal shrieking as if the vessel were crying out in pain. At last they reached the cargo bay. Primus slapped the door panel, and the portal screeched open to reveal a cavernous chamber. The Benzites stumbled to a halt, their eyes widening in awe. Row after row of gleaming stasis pods filled the bay, stretching into the gloom. Each pod contained a motionless human figure, clad in battle armor of black composite. Primus realized in an instant these were the subjects of the ill-fated Project Prometheus, the humans' abortive attempt to create super-soldiers. His mind raced as he scanned the chamber. They would never be able to haul more than one pod back to their shuttle in time. He spun to his crew, a desperate plan taking shape. "Kren, find us a grav sled. Zolax, you're with me. We need to pick a pod and get it loaded now." As Kren dashed off in search of a cargo sled, Primus and Zolax sprinted between the rows of pods, scanning for one that looked intact and functional. The deck shuddered violently, nearly hurling them off their feet. In the distance, the terrible sound of screeching, ripping metal grew louder. "Here!" Zolax cried, skidding to a stop beside a pod. "This one's readings are stable." Primus joined him, checking the status displays. The pod's occupant was a human male, his chiseled features and cropped blonde hair visible through the transparent aluminium shell. Readouts showed strong vital signs, and the pod's power cells glowed with a steady, reassuring light. Kren appeared, maneuvering a floating cargo pallet. "I found a sled, but we must hurry. The ship—" A deafening boom cut him off as a hull breach alarms blared. The hull was giving way. Cursing, Primus and Zolax wrestled the heavy pod onto the grav sled, locking it in place with maglev clamps. "Go, go," Primus roared. Kren gunned the sled's engines, and the Benzites leapt aboard as it lurched into motion. The deck canted sickeningly underfoot as they shot out of the cargo bay. Jaw clenched, Primus clung to the sled's frame as it careened through the disintegrating ship. Structural members crashed down around them, and the howl of escaping atmosphere nearly deafened him. Ahead, the shuttle bay gaped open, their ship a tiny bubble of safety beyond. Molten sparks rained down as they shot through the bay's crackling force field, the sled and its precious cargo trailing smoke. Then they were aboard, Kren slamming the shuttle's hatch closed an instant before a river of flame blasted through the bay behind them. Zolax lunged for the helm, his fingers flying over the controls, and the small ship roared out of the shuttle bay. Through the viewports, Primus watched the ravaged human vessel recede into the distance, vanishing into the hungry maw of the black hole. He felt a pang of sorrow for the ancient human crew who had fought so valiantly and died aboard that ruined ship. Then he turned to the pod lashed to the grav sled, a thrill racing through him. The legacy of those long-dead heroes might yet live on. With the technology and knowledge locked within this pod, the fate of the Benzite people could be forever changed. As the little ship streaked for the safety of home, Primus allowed himself a tight smile. The future was looking brighter already. The Benzite ship shuddered as it streaked away from the collapsing human warship. The stasis pod, containing the mysterious Prometheus soldier securely loaded in its cargo hold. On the bridge, Primus slumped back in his command chair, his heart still pounding from their narrow escape. Primus pushed himself to his feet. "Kren, the pod is secure." "Yes, Captain." It weathered the jump without issue. "Good. You two with me. I want a closer look at our passenger." The trio made their way to the cargo bay, the only sound the thrum of the ship's engines pushing them toward home. The stasis pod sat in the center of the hold, a black metal cylinder nearly the height of 2 Benzites. Primus circled it slowly, his eyes roving over the imperial sigil embossed on its surface, the dense readout scrolling across the status panel. Zolax frowned. "Is it wise to unseal it? If the human is as enhanced as the logs claimed?" "We'll take precautions, but we need to know what we're dealing with." Primus nodded to Kren. "Open it." The engineer tapped a code into the control panel, and the pod hissed open, frigid mist spilling from its interior. Primus leaned closer, peering through the dissipating haze. His eyes widened. The human was male, easily 7 feet tall, his form corded with dense muscle visible through the angular planes of his black bodysuit. Lambent circuitry shimmered beneath his pale skin, running along his arms and up his neck to a metal skull cap bristling with neural interface jacks. His eyes were closed, his chiseled face peaceful in stasis-induced slumber. "Magnificent," Primus breathed. "The height of human augmentation. Kren, run a full bioscan and—" The words died as the soldier's eyes snapped open, irises an unnatural electric blue. His cybernetic gaze locked onto Primus, and faster than thought he launched himself from the pod, hands outstretched like claws. "Zolax!" Primus barked even as he fell back, narrowly evading the soldier's grasp. Zolax lunged at the human, a stun baton crackling to life in his fist. The soldier spun and caught his arm, servos whining as he wrenched the Benzite off his feet and sent him crashing into the wall. Kren scrambled for the door controls, but the soldier was faster. In an instant he had the engineer by the throat, hoisting him one-handed like a rag doll as he scanned the hold with those eerie blue eyes. The soldier's gaze fixed on him, and Primus had the unnerving sensation that he was being dissected layer by layer, as those cybernetic eyes seemed to peer into his very thoughts. Then the human spoke, his voice a rasping croak. Primus blinked, surprised to hear imperial standards spilling from the soldier's lips. His translator implant must be sophisticated indeed to have assimilated an entire language from mere minutes of exposure. "You're aboard a Benzite ship. We recovered you from a derelict warship on the verge of destruction. As for the year," Primus hesitated. How much did this human relic already know? "It's 2419 by the Terran calendar. The war with the Quor ended 3 centuries ago." The soldier's eyes widened fractionally. Slowly he lowered Kren to the deck, servos humming as his grip relaxed. 300 years, he murmured. Then Project Prometheus. Did we succeed? Did it change the course of the war? Primus lowered his gun carefully, hope fluttering in his chest. "We don't know," he admitted, "but we want to learn. Will you tell us of your role in the project? Of the true power humanity sought to unleash?" The soldier was silent for a long moment, his gaze turned inward. When he spoke again, his voice was distant, almost pained. "I'll tell you what I can, but be warned, the tale of Project Prometheus is one of desperation, of the lengths to which humanity would go to survive. It is not a comfortable story." Primus glanced at his battered crew, at the gleaming stasis pod that had yielded this enigmatic warrior. From an age long past, he thought of the Benzite people, their potential, their need to catch up to the other spacefaring races. When he looked back to the soldier, his eyes were alight with determination. "Tell us everything." The soldier hesitated for a moment, his eyes distant as if lost in the labyrinth of his own memories, before he began to recount his tale in a voice that was both haunted and resolute. "My name is Sergeant Jeffrey Rice, and I was one of the few chosen for the Prometheus project. It was the most grueling thing I've ever endured, a gauntlet of surgeries and enhancements that pushed the boundaries of what the human body and mind could withstand. The procedures were excruciating. They cut into us, fused our flesh with circuitry and nanotech, rewired our very brains. Many couldn't take the strain. They died on the operating tables, or worse, came out wrong, broken shells of men, their minds shattered. But those of us who survived, we became something more than human. The enhancements granted us incredible strength and speed, reaction times so fast we could dodge bullets. Our minds could process tactical data and interface with our gear in ways that made us living weapons. Rice's fists clenched, servos whining softly. But it came at a cost. We were never the same after Prometheus. The things we could do, the power we wielded, it changed us in body and soul. Some started to question if we were even human anymore. He shook his head. There were scientists, good men and women, who raised concerns. They said Prometheus was an abomination, that we were playing God, messing with forces we couldn't control. But the brass, they didn't care. All they saw was a new breed of super soldier to crush the Quar. Primus leaned forward, his eyes intent. What happened then? Prometheus was pushed forward, but there was resistance. Accidents in the labs, critical data lost, key personnel reassigned. Nothing that could be definitively pinned on sabotage, but it slowed the project. Then came our final mission, the battle your ship's log spoke of. Rice's gaze turned inward. It was supposed to be our grand reveal, a strike team of Prometheus soldiers taking the fight to the Quar's home system. We'd board their command ship, capture their leaders, force them to surrender. His voice dropped to a whisper. But something went wrong. The Quar knew we were coming. They were waiting for us. It was a slaughter. My whole team cut down before we could even engage. I was the only one to make it back to the ship, and as we fled I heard the whispers over the comms that we'd been betrayed, that someone had sold out Prometheus, leaked our plans to the enemy. He met Primus's eyes. I don't know who the traitor was, but I know this: Prometheus didn't die with my team. There were other subjects at other facilities. The man who put me in stasis said they'd be hidden away, scattered across the stars until the time was right. Primus felt a chill run down his spine at the implications. If Rice was telling the truth, then there could be dozens, even hundreds of enhanced human soldiers out there waiting to be found. It was Zolax who voiced the question on all their minds. But why would someone betray Prometheus? What did they stand to gain? Rice's face darkened. Power, control. Prometheus was the ultimate military asset. Whoever controlled us would be unstoppable. And now, with the project's secrets scattered to the winds, it's only a matter of time before someone tries to recover them. He fixed Primus with a piercing stare, his artificial eyes seeming to bore into the Benzite's soul. You've stumbled onto something bigger than you know, Captain, and now that you've got me, every faction in the galaxy will be after us. The Quar, the Terran remnants, even your own government. They'll all want the key to creating super soldiers. Primus swallowed hard, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a leaden cloak. He thought of his ship, his crew, his people, all the innocent lives that could be caught in the crossfire if the wrong powers obtained the secrets of Prometheus. But even as the words left his mouth, Primus couldn't shake the feeling that they were already in over their heads, that by saving Sergeant Rice and the knowledge he carried, they had painted a target on their own backs. As if sensing his thoughts, Rice nodded grimly. It won't be easy. The forces arrayed against us are powerful and ruthless. They'll stop at nothing to get what they want. Even now, they're probably mobilizing to hunt us down. Primus glanced at Zolax and Kren, saw his own fears mirrored in their eyes, but beneath the fear he saw something else, a glimmer of excitement, of purpose, the chance to be part of something greater than themselves, to shape the destiny of the galaxy itself. And with those words the die was cast. The crew of the tiny benzite ship had set themselves on a path from which there could be no turning back, a path that would lead them into the heart of a galactic conspiracy and a battle for the very future of their species. But as Primus looked into the faces of his crewmates, the determined set of Zolax's jaw, the eager gleam in Kren's eyes, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. For better or worse, their fates were now intertwined with that of Sergeant Jeffrey Rice and the long-lost soldiers of Project Prometheus. The hunt for the truth had begun. The hunt for the truth behind Project Prometheus was on. But as Primus and his crew set out on their mission, a new threat emerged from the void. "Captain, sensors are picking up an unidentified vessel on an intercept course," Zolax reported, his voice tight. "It's moving fast." Primus leaned forward in his command chair, eyes narrowing at the viewscreen. The approaching ship was a jagged dagger of metal, all harsh angles and bristling weapon emplacements. And there, emblazoned on its pitted hull, the snarling emblem of the Quar Empire. "It can't be," Primus breathed. "The Quar have been in retreat for decades. What are they doing out here?" In the cargo hold, Sergeant Rice jolted upright, his eyes wide. "That's no ordinary Quar ship," he said grimly. "Those markings, that configuration, it belongs to a rogue faction called the Shadow Claws, fanatics obsessed with salvaging lost war tech." He met Primus's gaze, his expression dark. "They must have gotten wind of my discovery, and now they mean to capture me and the secrets of Prometheus for their own twisted ends." Primus felt a cold knot form in his gut. The benzite ship was a mere science vessel, no match for a Quar warship. They had to run, but where? He called up a star map, searching desperately for some advantage, some way to level the playing field. There, a dense asteroid field, just a few parsecs away. "Kren, lay in a course for that asteroid belt, maximum speed," Primus ordered. "We'll try to lose them in the rocks." The benzite ship leapt forward, engines screaming as Kren pushed them to the limit. On the viewscreen, the Quar vessel loomed ever larger, an implacable predator. Within minutes, they were among the asteroids, the ship shuddering as Kren jinked and wove through the tumbling maze of stone. The Quar dogged their every move, energy bolts sizzling past the canopy. "We can't keep this up forever," Zolax warned, his knuckles pale on the weapon controls. "Shields are already at half strength." Primus gritted his teeth, mind racing. They needed an edge, something to tip the balance. His gaze fell on Rice, the Prometheus subject. "Sergeant, your implants. Could they interface with our weapon systems? Give us the accuracy we need to disable that warship?" Rice's eyes narrowed, calculations flickering behind his pupils. "It's possible. I'd need direct access to your gunnery controls." Primus nodded curtly. "Kren, give him what he needs." Then to Rice, "Make it count, Sergeant. We won't get a second chance." "Firing," Rice said, his voice eerily calm. The benzite ship's weapons thundered, lances of plasma scorching through the void. The Quar ship jinked and twisted, retaliatory fire hammering the benzite shields. The two craft danced a deadly waltz through the asteroids, near misses sending geysers of molten rock spraying into space. Consoles sparked and alarms blared, the benzite ship shuddering under the onslaught. But Rice stood unmoving, his augmented mind one with the ship, outmaneuvering the Quar with uncanny precision. Then with a final salvo it was over. The Quar ship lurched, engines guttering out as Rice's surgical shots found their mark. It drifted, powerless and crippled, vanishing into the asteroid field. In the sudden silence, Primus slumped back in his chair, his heart pounding. They had survived, but only just, and he knew with grim certainty that this was only the beginning. The secrets of Prometheus would not remain hidden for long. Primus nodded grimly, the weight of their mission settling on his shoulders like a leaden cloak. To find the truth of Prometheus, To secure the future of his people, they would need all the resourcefulness and cunning they could muster. The hunt was on, and the stakes could not be higher. With the Quar ship vanquished, Primus turned to Rice, his eyes alight with determination. "Sergeant, we need to find the other Prometheus subjects before they fall into the wrong hands." Rice nodded grimly. "I have fragmented memories, flashes of places and coordinates. With the data from the ship's logs, we might be able to piece together a map." As the Benzite ship sped through the void, Primus, Rice and Kren pored over the decrypted files, cross-referencing Rice's scattered recollections with the ancient records. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge, a trail of breadcrumbs leading to hidden stasis facilities scattered across the galaxy. But as they delved deeper, they found themselves drawn into a web of secrets and lies that stretched back to the very heart of the human-Quar war. Project Prometheus, they discovered, was but one piece in a much larger puzzle. "It wasn't just the humans," Rice said, his brow furrowed as long-buried memories surfaced. "The Quar were developing their own super-soldiers, genetic engineering, cybernetic implants, Sci-Fi tech. It was an arms race to create the ultimate weapon." Primus felt a chill run down his spine. The implications were staggering. If both sides had been pursuing such technologies, then the Prometheus subjects might not be the only enhanced beings out there. As they followed the trail, Rice began to uncover the truth about his own past. He had been more than just a soldier, he realized. He had been a key part of something called Operation Odysseus, a mission whose true purpose had been hidden from him. "I was sent to that ship for a reason," he said, his voice hollow, "but I can't remember why. Something to do with the Prometheus tech. Something secret." But before they could unravel the mystery, Zolax burst onto the bridge, his face ashen. "Captain, we're picking up transmissions on multiple frequencies. It seems we're not the only ones searching for the Prometheus subjects." Primus leaned forward, his heart pounding. "Who else is out there?" "From what I can gather, various factions. Human remnants who want the tech for themselves, Quar warlords seeking a new edge, even other alien races who see the subjects as the key to understanding human advancements." Primus slammed a fist on the console. They were in a race now, a desperate scramble to find the subjects before they fell into the wrong hands, and with each passing moment, the stakes grew higher. Rice's face was grim. "If any of these groups acquire a Prometheus soldier, it could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. We can't let that happen." Primus nodded. Their mission had just become a lot more complicated. They would have to navigate a treacherous landscape of shifting alliances and hidden agendas, never knowing who to trust. But one thing was certain, they had to find the other subjects first. The fate of the galaxy might well depend on it. As the Benzite ship charted a course for the nearest set of coordinates, Primus couldn't shake the feeling that they were embarking on a journey from which there might be no return. They were delving into secrets long buried, a dark legacy from a war that had nearly torn the galaxy asunder. But there could be no turning back now. For better or worse, their fates were now intertwined with those of the Prometheus subjects, and they would not rest until they had uncovered the truth, no matter the cost. Primus and his crew raced through the void, their ship straining at the limits of its capabilities as they chased down the coordinates of the final Prometheus subject. Rice, his face a mask of grim determination, pored over the data, his enhanced mind processing the information at lightning speed. Primus nodded, his hands flying over the controls as he laid in the course. The ship shuddered as it leapt into warp, the stars blurring into streaks of light outside the viewports. But they were not alone in their pursuit. As they dropped out of warp at the coordinates, they found themselves face to face with a rival faction's ship, bristling with weapons and filled with ruthless mercenaries. The enemy ship opened fire, its plasma cannons raking across the Benzite vessel's shields. Primus cursed, throwing the ship into evasive maneuvers as Zolax returned fire, the ship's weapon systems straining under the onslaught. On the ground below, a fierce battle erupted as Primus, Rice and a strike team fought their way through the enemy forces, desperate to reach the stasis pod. Plasma bolts filled the air, scorching the earth, and illuminating the grim determination etched on the faces of the combatants. Rice moved like a blur, his enhanced reflexes and strength making him a one-man army. He tore through the enemy ranks, his weapons spitting death and destruction, clearing a path for Primus and the others. But even with Rice's incredible abilities, the enemy's numbers were too great. The strike team found themselves surrounded, cut off from their ship and rapidly running out of options. Rice, his face streaked with blood and grime, turned to Primus, a haunted look in his eyes. "You have to get that pod out of here," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "I'll buy you the time you need." Primus shook his head, unwilling to leave his friend behind, but Rice was insistent. "This is bigger than me, bigger than any of us. The future of the galaxy is at stake." With a final fierce embrace, Rice turned and charged into the enemy ranks, his weapons blazing, drawing the fire of the mercenaries. Primus, tears stinging his eyes, led the strike team in a desperate rush for the stasis pod, snatching it from its resting place and racing back to the ship. As they blasted off into the sky, Primus looked back, watching as the explosions of the battle grew distant. He knew that Rice had given his life to ensure their escape, to give them a chance to protect the Prometheus subjects from those who would exploit them. In the quiet of the ship's medical bay, as Kren worked to stabilize the newly awakened subject, Rice's final words echoed in Primus's mind. The soldier had spoken of the true nature of Project Prometheus, of the terrible consequences that could unfold if the subjects were ever fully awakened without proper care and guidance. Primus knew that he faced a difficult choice. The Prometheus subjects, for all their potential as weapons, were victims of a cruel experiment. To honor Rice's sacrifice, he had to ensure that they would never be used as tools of war again. The Prometheus subjects, for all their potential as weapons, were ultimately victims of a cruel and unethical experiment. He knew that he could not allow them to be exploited by any faction, human or alien, and that the only way to truly honor Rice's memory was to ensure that the subjects were never used again. In a daring move, Primus and his crew took the remaining stasis pods to a remote, uncharted planet, far from the prying eyes of the galaxy. There, they set up a hidden facility, dedicated to studying the Prometheus technology and finding a way to safely awaken the subjects and help them integrate into society. As the story came to a close, Primus reflected on the incredible journey that had brought him to this point. He thought of the sacrifices made, the friends lost, and the weight of the responsibility he now bore. He knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but he was determined to see it through, to honor the memory of Jeffrey Rice, and to ensure that the legacy of Project Prometheus was one of hope and redemption, rather than destruction and despair. The narrator concluded the tale, leaving the audience to ponder the complex nature of humanity's past and the enduring impact of the choices made in the heat of war. The story served as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always the potential for growth, understanding, and the triumph of the human spirit. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.